Assalamu alaikum, Imam Asif. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Good, Alhamdulillah. So today we wanted to talk about Zakat al Fitr, which is a separate zakat than Zakat al Mal. So if you don't mind walking us through what is the purpose of Zakat al Fitr? Is it mandatory? And yeah.
Okay, so it's a very good question. So, from the mandatory standpoint or obligatory standpoint, there are two kinds of charity which is obligatory on annual basis. One is Zakat al Fitr, which will you have to give before you pray Salatul Eid, Eid al Fitr, and second is Zakat al Mal, which 2.5% on your zakatable wealth, which we already discussed in the previous videos. The objective of Zakat al Fitr, first of all, the something which they are similar, then there are something which is different. The objective of Zakat al Fitr is explained by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, tuhratul Islam wa ta'atul masakin, so that it can purify the fasting person, whatever the shortcomings in our fast and in our ibadat in the month of Ramadan, it can clean that, it can purify from that, and it can basically provide food on the table of the poor and needy people on the day of the Eid. So it gives them something to celebrate Eid with us. So that's one of the intention of mandating Zakat al Fitr. Um, there are obviously a few things which are little different than regular zakat. In Zakat al Fitr, you have to give for everyone, whether they are adult or the children, even for newborn babies. Obviously, that's a disagreement. Majority said that you don't have to give for the fetus who is in your belly. But Usman ibn Affan used to say it's actually recommended mustahib, that even if you give for them. So again, this emphasizes the importance. But it's obligatory for the people, whether they are kids or adults, man or woman, regardless, they have to give Zakat al Fitr. And Zakat al Fitr does not even have the same nisab or the zakat threshold restriction. So most of these scholars will say, except Hanafi, so majority of the scholars will say, if you have food for survival for more than 24 hours, then you should give Zakat al Fitr. So pretty much everyone in the community should be able to give Zakat al Fitr in our time.
Okay. Awesome. And so then, how? So it's a very small number, but I will ask you to explain how it's calculated before we mention any specific number.
So Zakat al Fitr calculation method is always done from the food staple items. How do you calculate from wheat or rice, or the food staple items are already mentioned by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether you calculate from grains or dates. Based on the food, whatever you are selecting, and then there is a disagreement between a school of thought also. Scholars will going to give you different prices. So if you are going to if you want to know the range in US dollar in today's society, it will be anywhere, honestly speaking, from $5 to $15. Depend on which state you are, depend on what kind of food you are selecting to find that particular weight, and even that weight have a disagreement between Hanafis and the majorities. So I would say the better, obviously, the best thing is to give as much as you can, because it will benefit the poor and it will benefit the needy. But on average, we can say $10. Some organizations are taking 12, some are taking 7 and 8, I know. But on average, give $10, which is kind of a moderate Zakat al Fitr.
Okay, and do I give this to my local? And you said I need to do it before Eid Salah. So do I do it as I'm walking into Eid Salah at my local masjid? What is the best time to give it and place to give it?
Usually, the best time, classical scholar said that you should give before Eid, but that will be problem for us in the Western countries, because we are not giving zakat directly to poor in Western countries. We are giving it to our masajid. We are giving to our institutions, and the problem with that is that they have to be the wakil. They have to take the zakah and deliver it to the recipients. So you add one more layer, and it will be hard, difficult job for them. So what you can do, you can actually give your zakah before. Now there's obviously Hanbalis and Malikis don't allow you to give before. So they would say maximum 2 days before Eid you can do that, but not beyond to that. But Hanafis and Shafi says anytime in Ramadan you can give, and Hanafi says anytime in Ramadan, and even before the Ramadan, although it's not recommended, even it's permissible to give your Zakat al Fitr, so that the poor and needy can receive and we can achieve the purpose and objective of Zakat. Regarding the recipients, there is a huge disagreement who should receive this. Vast majority of scholars say that the recipients of Zakat al Fitr are same as these 8 wards of Zakat al Mal. So you can give to Fuqara and Masakin, you can give to Fi Sabilillah, Al-Mu'allafati Qulubuhum, whatever you want. But Malikis and some Hanbalis went with that no, Zakat al Fitr is only meant for poor and needy, because the hadith is very clear, وَتُعْمَةُ لِلْمَسَاكِينَ. When Rasulullah explains Zakat al Fitr, he says this is for providing food for the needy and poor. So they would take this hadith, the majority would take certain ayah in a general sense. So the rest of the rulings, perhaps most of them will be the same.
Okay, thank you so much for going into that. We appreciate your time, Imam Asif, as always. We'll see you tomorrow again. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.